What if I were to tell you that the biggest secret to peace, power, and purpose has absolutely nothing to do with dominating the world outside of you, but everything to do with conquering the world inside of you? Consider this for a moment. Emperors, warriors, slaves, and philosophers, individuals who lived through eras of turmoil, plagues, invasions, and betrayals, and still many of them discovered unshakable peace. They did not discover it through changing circumstances, but through changing themselves. This is the true essence of Stoic philosophy, and that's why the message that I am about to impart to you can totally revolutionize the way you perceive your life. Because when you master the art of concentrating on yourself, when you master the art of developing strength internally, everything else starts to fall into place quite organically. Consider Marcus Aurelius, a guy who wasn't just emperor of Rome, but a philosopher, an author, and a guy who existed in the midst of the storm. His empire was always in danger, enemies at the gates, plague sweeping his people, political conspiracy on every corner, and still his journal, the words we read today as Meditations, does not mention hatred, revenge, or despair. Rather, it mentions patience, discipline, and acceptance. Why? Because Marcus knew one thing: we can't control the world, but we can always control ourselves. That is the Stoic path, and that is the path you and I can still follow today. This is not a philosophy of abstract theories or empty ideas. Stoicism is practical, raw, and straightforward. It is a living manual. Epictetus, who was born a slave, used to say freedom is the sole worthy objective of life. It is won through ignoring things which are outside our control. And that is just what you will learn in this video. Today, I am going to present you with 10 useful Stoic lessons that can assist you in ceasing to waste energy on things which you cannot control, and instead channel that energy into the only thing that is yours: your own mind, your own actions, your own character. And here is the promise. You will look at your problems, your struggles, and even your pain in a totally different light by the time you complete this journey. You will understand that looking out for yourself is not selfishness, it is wisdom. Because only when you are strong on the inside can you stand the storms of life without being torn apart by them. These are not lessons that will require you to change the whole world. They are lessons that will require you to change your mindset. And when your mindset changes, everything else falls into place in ways you never imagined. But let me give you a warning. These 10 lessons are not a matter of passive listening. They are intended to be practiced, tested, and lived. The Stoics were of the view that philosophy was not something to discuss, but to practice every day. As Seneca wrote, "Philosophy teaches us to act, not to speak." So I invite you not only to listen to these teachings, but to apply them from today onwards. Because transformation starts not with hearing, but with action. And note well this: bear with me until the final moment. For the final lesson, the 10th lesson, is really the strongest, the one Marcus Aurelius himself returned to in his darkest hours. It is a truth that has endured for centuries, and if you adopt it, it can become the cornerstone of your power. Whatever storms assail you, you don't want to be absent for it. Now, before we dive into these ageless lessons, I'd like to invite you to participate with me in a very simple fashion. Stoicism isn't about passive contemplation. It is about active engagement. So here is my challenge to you. When you read a sentence that is struck by you, when you sense one of these lessons resonating deep within you, I want you to stop and leave in the comments the words "control yourself." It is a straightforward reminder, a brief command, but an effective one. By leaving those 2 words, you are already adopting the Stoic exercise of turning inward, of reclaiming your power, and of concentrating only on what is rightfully yours. Therefore, let us embark on this pilgrimage together. Get ready to tread the path of Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca. Get ready to unlearn the worldly distractions and get back to the essence of power, because when you learn to concentrate on yourself, When you train your mind to stay calm, disciplined and unwavering, then and only then all the rest of life will start to fall into place. This is not philosophy. This is a way of life, and it's waiting for you to make it yours. Lesson 10. Accept the things you cannot control. When Marcus Aurelius took a seat at the end of arduous, wearisome days being emperor, he frequently reminded himself of one plain truth. You control your mind, not external occurrences. Appreciate this and you will discover strength. This notion, possibly the strongest of all Stoic principles, is the building block that supports the whole philosophy. Being able to concentrate on yourself and see everything take its place starts with acceptance. Acceptance that there are things in life beyond your command, and that peace comes only when you stop wrestling against them. Think about your own life for a moment. How much time have you spent wishing that people would change? How many hours have you lost in anger over circumstances that you had no ability to alter? How often have you repeated the events in your head, hoping against hope that reality might have been different? All of us have spent days, even years, in this. The Stoics understood this. It is not the things themselves that bother us, but our resistance to them. Epictetus, who was born into slavery, might have spent his whole life being bitter. He was physically broken by a vicious master, leaving him crippled for life. And yet he rose to become one of the greatest teachers of philosophy. Why? Because he refused to let his mind be chained by what his body and his circumstances could not change. He taught that the first task of the philosopher is to draw a line between what is within our power, our thoughts, our choices, our actions, and what is not, other people, fortune, accidents, and death. If we get the two mixed up, we ensure unhappiness. If we distinguish clearly between them, we open up freedom. Think how frequently contemporary life tries this lesson. You are caught in traffic and the irritation builds up in your chest. But does your rage speed the cars along? A storm ruins your flight and all your meticulously arranged plans disintegrate? But does yelling at the clouds make it rain? The friend betrays your trust and the hurt feels real. But does looping the betrayal change their decision? The Stoics remind us repeatedly, no, those things are not under your control. All that you can control is how you react. This acceptance isn't weakness. It is not resignation. It is clarity. When you accept that the world will not do your bidding, you cease wasting your energy in 1,000 directions. You reclaim the energy and you focus it inward. You use it to train your responses, to act with virtue, to bear with dignity. And paradoxically, when you cease attempting to control the uncontrollable, you achieve more control of your life than you ever thought. Imagine the serene individual during an emergency, the one who maintains a level tone while everybody else loses their minds. That serenity is not derived from dominating the tempest. It is derived from not allowing the tempest to dominate them. This is something Marcus Aurelius exercised day in and day out. With war, plague and treachery all around him, he reminded himself, if you are troubled by outside things, it is not they that disturb you, but your own judgment of them. To live by this lesson is to live in serenity. Picture how different your life would be if you ceased to expect the world to bend to your will. Picture the load lifted from your shoulders if you were able to actually say, this is not mine to control, so I let it go. At that time, you walk into freedom. This is the 10th lesson because it is the easiest and yet the most difficult. Easy because the dividing line between what is in our power and what is not is distinct. Difficult because hearts still long to understand the world and make it bow. But keep this in mind, the storms of life are not demanding your permission. They will come and go whether you fight or not. The option you have is whether to drown in your resistance or to be at peace in acceptance. So as we start this journey along the Stoic path, hold on to this truth. Accept the things you cannot control and only concern yourself with the power of your own mind. In that focus, everything else starts to get into position. Lesson 9. Become a master of your reactions. Seneca once stated, We suffer more in imagination than in reality. The Stoics realize that events might hit us from the outside world, but the real battlefield is our own mind. Life is going to throw challenges, insults, losses, and pains our way, but the significance of those events, whether they break us or make us stronger, all hangs on how we have the option to respond. To concentrate on self and observe all fall into line needs this inner control. Without it, you are at the mercy of every outside blow. With it, you become immovable. Picture strolling through the marketplace of Roman Empire. A person bumps into you roughly, knocking wine on your cloak. Do you take out and curse the man, creating strife in the presence of everyone? Or do you breathe, keep in mind that accidents happen, and keep on with dignity? The incident itself is neutral. It is your response which provides it with the potential to disturb your peace. And the same holds good even today. Whether it is a rude driver, a critical colleague, or a family fight, the situation is much less significant than the tale you spin about it and the response you permit yourself to make. Epictetus likened life to a play. You do not dictate the script, the other players, or how long the play lasts. You dictate only how you portray your role. If you are insulted, it is like the line being delivered by another player. The line itself cannot harm you unless you step out of character and forget your purpose. Your purpose is to act with reason, with virtue, and with composure. By mastering your reaction, you remain true to your role no matter how chaotic the scene around you becomes. Think of the people you admire most in your own life. Chances are they are not the ones who lose control in anger, panic, or despair. They are calm in turmoil, steady when other people fall apart. Why do we look up to them? Because they teach us what strength is, not the strength to dominate all, but the strength to dominate themselves. This control is not suppression. The Stoics didn't instruct us to deny our feelings or to lie about their not being there. They instructed us to stop, to behold, examine, and to select our response intentionally. Anger will arise, fear will surface, sorrow will come. These are natural, but you do not have to behave blindly on their dictation. Marcus Aurelius exercised this discipline on a daily basis. He told himself, "You have power over your mind. Externally, nothing can harm you. But if you lose control of your reactions, you harm yourself." Use a contemporary example. You get an abusive email in the workplace. Your heart races, your chest constricts, your head is filled with comebacks. In this instant, you have a choice. One is to lash out immediately, to shoot back with acid words that can hurt relationships and your reputation. The other is to pause, catch your breath, and wait until sanity returns. By opting for the second, you show control not over the other person, but over yourself. That self-mastery safeguards your peace and keeps your integrity intact. The Stoics thought this internal mastery was not only a shield, but a kind of liberty. If no one can compel you to respond in manners you do not wish, then no one can really enslave your soul. They can insult you, but you are at liberty not to be offended. They can injure your body, but you have the choice to be courageous. They may be able to take away goods, but you have the choice to be detached. That is why Epictetus, though a former slave, was more free-spirited than many emperors. Developing this mastery is a life practice. It starts with awareness, saying to yourself in the split second before you act. It continues with discipline, a constant reminding of what is important and what isn't. And it deepens with repetition. Every time you opt for calm over chaos, you reinforce the habit of mastery. With time, this becomes second nature. You do not have to struggle with anger anymore because you have conditioned your mind to react with reason. Mastering your responses is to have the key to peace. Without mastery, even minor insults can ruin your day. With it, even major tragedies cannot rob you of your dignity. Marcus Aurelius dealt with conspiracies, betrayal, and the fall of armies, and still his writings reflect a steady hand, calm tone. He knew the truth. The world will test you, but how you react defines you. So let this lesson take hold deep. Look not at what others do, look not at what fortune brings, but at how you react. In this is your power, in this is your liberty. And when you have command over your responses, you'll find that all else in life falls into place. Not because the world shifts, but because you remain unmoved by it. Lesson 8. Nature. The Stoics kept repeating something that may seem simple, but holds a richness of insight that has the ability to turn your whole life around. Live in harmony with nature. At first, this sounds woolly or even irrelevant. How do you live according to nature in a world of skyscrapers, screens, and artificial lights? But if we look at it closely, we find that this lesson addresses our greatest challenges today. To live according to nature is to be aligned with reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. It is to know your position in the world, your function as a human being, and to live in accordance with reason, virtue, and the natural order of life. For Marcus Aurelius, living according to nature meant recalling that he was not merely an emperor, but also a man, a mortal creature, liable to sickness, aging, and death like all others. He reminded himself every day that he belonged to the greater whole, that he lived not to enjoy selfish desires, but to serve, to giving, and to live with justice. What is not beneficial to the hive is not good for the bee, he wrote, learning that his nature was not separate, but connected. In our contemporary lives, this lesson is more relevant than ever. Most of our pain is caused by opposing nature. We expect that life should be simple, but nature gave us challenge. We expect others always to be nice to us, but nature has provided us with a world of spontaneous personalities. We expect permanence, but nature created everything to change, to become old, and to die. To exist, along with nature, is to cease struggling with these realities and to begin flowing with them. Consider the river. If you jump into it and struggle with the current, you tire yourself out and get nowhere. But if you embrace the flow and go with it, you move ahead easily. Life is the same. Illness, aging, setbacks, and loss are a natural current. Struggling with them does not prevent them. It only drains your spirit. Acceptance, on the other hand, allows you to move with grace. Seneca warned often against resisting what is natural. He said, "Fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling." In other words, you can either walk in step with reality or be dragged by it in pain. How many times in your life have you been pulled along? Hanging on to relationships when they were already over, fighting change in the workplace only to be pushed into it nonetheless. Hanging on to youth while time proceeds inexorably. These are not created by life itself, but by our unwillingness to live in harmony with nature. But the Stoics had something more in mind as well. Living in harmony with nature is not merely a matter of tolerating things outside of us, events. It is about being faithful to your own humanity. And what is the nature of a human being? The Stoics thought it is to employ reason to act with virtue, to be a social person in accordance with others. When we are disloyal to this nature, when we exist in egotism, cruelty, or ignorance, we rend ourselves asunder. When we respect this nature, when we exist with courage, justice, temperance, and wisdom, we are at peace. Practically, what that looks like is asking yourself every day, am I living in accordance with what I was created to do? Am I following my reason for making decisions, or am I controlled by impulses? Am I being just, or am I hurting others for personal benefit? Am I exercising self-control, or am I being controlled by desires? These questions ground you in your real self. They remind you that you are not here to indulge without end, to bicker senselessly, or to pursue shallow gratifications. You are here to live as a rational, virtuous social creature. Contemporary life urges us to forget this. We are instructed that pleasure comes from possessions, from social status, from indulgence. But none of these reflect nature. They are artificial diversions. That is why so many people feel hollow even when they appear to have everything. The Stoics teach us that fulfillment does not derive from fighting against nature, but from going back to it, living simply, living justly, living with a sense that we are connected to something greater. Living in accordance with nature also entails embracing impermanence. Everything changes, everything comes to an end. The seasons teach us this. Every year spring blossoms, summer blazes, autumn withers, and winter leaves all bare. Human life is no different. To fight this is to bring on endless sorrow. To embrace it is to see beauty in every moment, knowing that it belongs to the natural course of things. Marcus Aurelius thought a lot about this fact, reminding himself that he would also soon be gone, as were the emperors who preceded him. This did not depress him at all, but instead him clarity. It encouraged him to live well during the short time he had. So what does this lesson have to do with you today? It has to do with aligning yourself with reality, rather than insisting that reality align itself with you. It has to do with understanding your own human nature and trying to live with reason and virtue. It has to do with accepting change rather than fighting it. And it has keeping in mind that you are a part of something greater than yourself. And your responsibility is not just to yourself but to the entire. To live nature's way is to live free. Free from the shackles of unrealistic expectations. Free from the agony of resisting what must be. Free from the illusions which society is selling us. It is to walk in harmony with the world as it really is, and in so doing, to find peace. Lesson 7. Accept adversity as training. The Stoics did not pray for an easy life. They did not plead with the gods to take obstacles out of their way. Rather, they conditioned themselves to view every challenge as a chance to become stronger. Adversity to them was not an enemy, but a teacher, not a punishment, but a type of training for the soul. This is how Marcus Aurelius stated it. The obstacle to action facilitates action. What is against you becomes the way. This is one of the most radical and liberating of the Stoic teachings. Suppose instead of recoiling from difficulty, you embrace them as mental exercises. Suppose every insult were an opportunity to practice patience, every loss an opportunity to practice detachment, every setback an opportunity to practice resilience. This is what it means to accept adversity as training. Consider a soldier getting ready for battle. He doesn't become stronger by sitting in comfort. He becomes stronger by overcoming adversity, carrying heavy loads, suffering pain, and pushing his limits. Life operates similarly. Without adversity, our character is weak, untested, and vulnerable. With adversity, we build the inner muscles of courage, endurance, and wisdom. Seneca cautioned against desiring a life of ease. He stated, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. If you avoid struggle, you avoid growth. If you hide from pain, you hide from strength. The very difficulties you fear are the moments that have defined you and shaped you into the individual you were intended to be." Reflect on your own life. Think back on the most difficult times of your life, the setbacks, the breakups, the losses. Were they enjoyable? No. Did they challenge you? Yes. But are you not better, wiser, and stronger because of them? Many individuals, when asked to identify their turning points in life, cite not to times of comfort, but to times of effort. That was when they came to realize their full potential. Epictetus, who had faced slavery and disability, encouraged his students to perceive difficulty as raw material for virtue. If life provided them with pain, it was raw material for endurance. If life provided them with injustice, it was raw material for justice. If life provided them with fear, it was raw material for courage. In his view, the world was like a training ground, and every challenge was a burden put on the soul in order to make it stronger. In today's life, we tend to fall into the trap of convenience. We look for convenience, ease, and security around every corner. Comfort, however, creates weakness. If we never challenge ourselves, even minor issues overwhelm us. That is why so many people break down over petty inconveniences. They have never prepared themselves for hardship. The Stoics are reminding us to embrace struggle not as something to fear, but as something to be embraced. This is not an invitation to seek out suffering for suffering's sake. The Stoics never glorified pain. What they did teach is that when pain arrives, as eventually it will, you need to approach it with the proper mindset. Instead of yelling, "Why me?" yell, "Why not me? This is my opportunity to demonstrate my sturdiness." Rather than requesting an easier load, discipline yourself to bear a firmer back. Marcus Aurelius himself survived plague, war, and treachery. He might have complained day in and day out, but he disciplined his mind to view each difficulty as a part of his responsibility. Each night in his diary, he remembered that life was not supposed to be easy. He viewed every problem as fodder for the exercise of virtue. And this is why his words continue to inspire us today, because he practiced what he preached. Envision how different your life would be if you took this point of view. Instead of dreading difficulties, you would welcome it. Rather than cracking under pressure, you would be strengthened by it. Rather than pleading with life to shield you from storms, you would discipline yourself into being the storm. This is the strength the Stoics developed, strength that is also available to you. So the next time life tests you, take a moment and recall that this is training. This pain is refining me. This challenge is molding me. The more you accept adversity as training, the more you strengthen yourself. And when you concentrate on building yourself up this way, everything else in life starts to fall into place. Lesson 6. Let go of desire. One of the most treacherous pitfalls of the human mind is desire, the constant craving for more, the insatiable hunger for what we do not yet possess. This the Stoics understood. They recognized that unbridled desire binds us to disappointment. For the instant we acquire what we desire, the pleasure evaporates, and fresh desires emerge again. Seneca cautioned us, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." To concentrate on yourself and see everything work out, you need to acquire the discipline of detachment from desire. This doesn't involve the denial of all pleasure or the renunciation of all ambition. The Stoics weren't ascetics in caves. They enjoyed life's gifts, but only in moderation and never as slaves. The lesson isn't to eradicate desire entirely, but to master it so that you are the master of your wants, instead of allowing your wants to have you. Consider the way desire operates in contemporary life. You crave a new phone, a new car, a larger house. You tell yourself that when you get it, you will at last be satisfied. And for a little while you are. But the glimmer wears off and your mind starts wanting the next thing. This is the cycle of desire, an infinite treadmill that never permits rest. The Stoics recognized it for what it is, a trap that takes away our peace. Epictetus instructed his students to practice a simple exercise. When you desire something, stop and remind yourself that it is not actually yours. The object, the result, the accolades, everything is outside your total control. You can acquire it or you cannot. And if your happiness is tied to it, then your happiness is bound to fortune. But if you release yourself, if you tell yourself, "I will enjoy it if it arrives, but I do not require it to live well," then you are free. Detachment from desire also involves training your mind to recognize abundance in what you already have. Seneca encouraged his pupils to cultivate gratitude, to remind themselves every day of the wealth already at hand. It is not the man who has little, but the man who covets more that is poor. Woody, when you pause and reflect and notice that you already possess food, shelter, friendships, and the ability to think and act, you come to realize just how wealthy you are. Desire loosens its hold when gratitude fills the space. Marcus Aurelius wrote frequently of the threat of being controlled by desire. As emperor, he had access to vast wealth and power, and yet he lived modestly. He reminded himself that luxury is brittle, that it takes you away from virtue, and that it never brings you fulfillment. What he cared about most was not material possessions, but character, the capacity to be calm, just, and disciplined no matter what was happening outside. In contemporary terms, this lesson encourages us to draw back from consumer culture. Everywhere we look, we are bombarded with messages telling us we are incomplete, that we need more to be whole. But the Stoic response is unequivocal. You do not require more, you require less wanting. You need to escape the delusion that happiness will be found in the next acquisition, the next advancement, the next attainment. Happiness is found in controlling yourself, not in possessing more. This does not imply rejecting ambition. The Stoics appreciated purposeful effort and significant goals, but they differentiated between salutary ambition, informed by reason and virtue, and pernicious desire instigated by avarice and vanity. You can strive to improve yourself, to serve others, and to fulfill your potential without being enslaved by craving. The key is to pursue goals with effort, but to release the need for outcomes beyond your control. Detachment from desire also prepares us for loss. Everything we possess is temporary. Our wealth, our health, our relationships, all of it can be snatched away in the blink of an eye. If we hold on to them as though they are eternal, we welcome despair when they're gone. But if we learn detachment, we appreciate them fully while they're here, and we release them graciously when nature calls. As Epictetus taught us, when you kiss your child, say to yourself, "Tomorrow he may die." This was not heartlessness, it was lucidity. It was a reminder to love without grasping, to enjoy without holding your heart hostage to what must ultimately slip away. To release yourself from desire is to define freedom. Picture no longer being haunted by longings you cannot fulfill. Picture no longer being controlled by jealousy when others possess something you do not. Picture being able to appreciate the smallest pleasures, food, friendship, nature, free from the need for anything else. This is what freedom the Stoics offer. The next time you feel the tug of desire, stop. Ask yourself, will this really make me free or tie me more deeply? Instead, focus on what you already have, your character, your reason, your capacity to act virtuously. Here is wealth greater than any fortune, and when you are free of desire, all other things in life start falling into place. Practice 5. Practice voluntary discomfort. The Stoics used to believe that real strength is not developed during times of comfort, but in challenging times. However, they also knew something extraordinary. You do not have to wait for life to push you around. You can train yourself using voluntary discomfort. Seneca practiced this every day. He would dress in rough clothes, eat plain fare, and ask himself, "Is this what I dreaded?" By intentionally putting himself in discomfort, he conditioned his mind to endure actual hardship without fear. This is a lesson that will seem peculiar to our modern years. Why would anyone on purpose adopt discomfort in a world in which we expend so much effort to avoid it? We heat our houses in the winter, cool them in the summer, and engineer our lives to live as comfortably as possible at every turn. And yet, the more we pursue comfort, the more vulnerable we become. Little inconveniences are intolerable. Little setbacks are tragedies. The Stoics recognize comfort as perilous because it makes us vulnerable. Deliberate discomfort turns that vulnerability back on its head. When you voluntarily take hardship in small amounts, you harden your heart. When you sleep on the floor for a night, you remember that you do not need luxury to rest. When you fast for a day, you realize that hunger is not as frightening as you once thought. When you take a cold shower, you remind yourself that you can endure what is unpleasant. Each of these practices builds resilience. Each is a way of teaching your mind, "I am stronger than my circumstances." Epictetus, who understood real adversity, instructed his followers, "Difficulties show what men are. By voluntarily practicing discomfort, you train yourself to meet difficulties with strength rather than fear. You are reminded that you can get by with less, and in doing so, you find freedom. Because what can fortune take from a man who has already trained himself to live with little?" Reflect on how delicate contemporary society is. A slow internet connection causes indignation. A flight delay brings on panic. An appliance on the fritz is like a crisis. But they are not crises. They are little annoyances. The Stoic discipline of self-induced discomfort keeps these things in perspective. When you have conditioned yourself to bear hunger, cold, and tiredness, these little issues no longer faze you. You become firm, calm, unmoved. Seneca frequently dwelt on the riches he had, but he feared that its power over him. That is why he would on purpose live as though he was poor, calling to mind that happiness did not need wealth. He said, "Set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" Doing so, he liberated himself from fear of poverty. He demonstrated to himself that even when fortune betrayed him, he could still live well. This exercise does not involve extremes. You do not have to leave your home or starve yourself. The question is not to hurt yourself, but to remind yourself that you can survive greater than you imagine. Small discomforts are sufficient. Walk rather than driving, miss a meal, sleep in the cold without a blanket, keep on wearing the same clothes for a few days. Each action is a reminder. Happiness is not based on comfort, and peace is not based on luxury. By voluntarily engaging agencies of discomfort, you also cultivate gratitude. When you come back to courage from comfort. After opting for discomfort, you appreciate it more deeply. A plain meal is like a feast when you have been fasting. A warm bed becomes paradise after being out in the cold. In this manner, discomfort makes you appreciate what you already possess more keenly, and appreciation is one of the deepest foundations of peace. In our contemporary world, many individuals exist perpetually anxious about losing what they possess. They are afraid of losing wealth, status, or belongings. But self-imposed discomfort breaks this fear. When you consciously abandon comfort, you know that you can do without it. You no longer fear poverty because you have already tried it out. You no longer fear hardship because you have already suffered it. This is liberty to live without fear of losing what is not essential. Imagine how powerful you would feel if you knew with certainty that you could endure anything. Imagine facing the possibility of loss not with terror but with calm acceptance. This is the gift of voluntary discomfort. It prepares you for life's storms by reminding you that your happiness is not tied to possessions, luxury, or ease. It is tied to your ability to remain strong no matter what. So take this lesson seriously. Start small. Pick one act of willing discomfort this week. Have a simple bread and water meal. Go for a walk in the cold without complaining. Sleep with no fancy comforts. While you do, tell yourself, this is enough. I can handle this. Every act will make your spirit stronger. And the stronger your spirit, the less the world can rattle you. Voluntary discomfort is not punishment. It is training. It is the way you condition your mind for the unavoidable challenges of life. And when true adversity arrives, as it always does, you will face it not with fear, but with strength. That is the Stoic way. Lesson 4. Protect your time ruthlessly. Of all the world's resources, the one which cannot be replaced is time. You can lose money and win it back. You can lose things and get them back, but each hour, each minute that elapses is lost forever. The Stoics knew this in agonized sharpness. Seneca cautioned, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. To live well, to concentrate on yourself and see everything fall into place, you must learn to watch over your time aggressively." Consider for a moment how you live your days. How many hours are lost to distractions, browsing through infinite feeds, debating meaningless things, wallowing in gossip, pursuing pleasures that dissipate as soon as they enter? If you tally them up, you might discover that much of your life has been spent on things that hold no enduring worth. The Stoics advised us to awaken to this reality, to cease living as though we have tomorrows coming out of thee, and to live each day as though it were our last. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself repeatedly of how fleeting life is. In Meditations, he stated, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." These words are not meant to depress, but to refine focus. They are an appeal to live on purpose, to cease wasting time on trivialities, and to commit yourself to what is vital. Protecting your time requires you to become aware of how you spend it. It requires you to ask yourself, is this worth my finite hours? Is this step in line with my values, my purpose, my character? If the answer is no, then you have the courage to let it go. To say no is not selfishness, it is wisdom, because every time you say yes to something trivial, you are saying no to something meaningful. Seneca berated those who protected their wealth better than their time. He noticed that people get angry when a little money is being stolen from them, but they let hours, even years, slip away without complaint. He referred to this as the biggest waste of all, to give away your life little by little to distractions and trivia and act as though you have a limitless supply. This lesson is even more necessary today. The world is created to steal your attention. Technology, entertainment, and advertising fight constantly for your time. If you are not careful, you will wake up one morning with the realization that much of your life has been spent on empty distractions. Saving your time with rigor is not optional. It is a necessity. This does not equate to living in stiffness or depriving yourself of delight. It means deliberately choosing. It means cherishing quality over quantity. It means spending time on relationships that are significant, on work that satisfies, in research that illuminates, and in periods of peaceful contemplation that deepen your spirit. It is about not squandering yourself on resentment, envy, or activities that hold no significance. Marcus Aurelius himself experienced immense pressures on his time as emperor, but he made space for writing, contemplation, and philosophy. He understood that without these disciplines, his soul would shrivel up under the burden of ceaseless obligations. If the Emperor of Rome could keep his time, then surely we can too. To use this lesson, start by seeing where your time is going. Keep a week's journal. See how much is spent on distractions, on things you can't control, on empty indulgences. Then ask yourself, what can I trim away? What can I swap out for something worthwhile? Even little changes make huge difference. Protecting your time also means embracing mortality. Keeping death in mind is not morbid, it is freedom. When you have it in your mind that your days are numbered, you stop putting off what's important. You stop telling yourself, I'll do it someday, and you begin to live today. Seneca challenged us to live every day like a whole life so that whenever death arrives, we are prepared because nothing important has been left behind. Let this lesson sink into you. Stop frittering away hours as if they were never ending. Begin to use your time as the rarest treasure you have. Prioritize what's most important, your character, your virtues, your calling, and use your hours only for those things. Because in the end, it's not how long you live, it's how well you spent the time given you. When you protect your time stubbornly, distractions lose their strength. Regret dissipates. Life grows keener, richer, more meaningful. And when you direct your time toward what is essential, you will notice that all else starts to get sorted out. Lesson 3. Master your thoughts. Epictetus shared a lesson so plain and yet so compelling that it can redefine an entire life. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. At the very core of this truth is the discipline of controlling your thoughts. The Stoics believe that our minds are the true battleground of life. If you can master your thoughts, no storm can shake you. If you cannot, even the smallest breeze will topple you. Every day, countless impressions bombard us. A harsh comment from a stranger, a letdown from work, an unanticipated issue that upsets our plans. At once, the mind starts to tell stories. This is unjust. This is awful. This destroys everything. And in the thought, our pain compounds. But the Stoics made the point that the external occurrence is not the issue is the judgment we assign to it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Be aware of this, and you will have strength. Observe the key. Your mind is yours. Your judgments are yours. No one can compel you to think in a particular manner unless you give up that authority." And thus the grand work of Stoicism is the recovery of this power, the ceasing to allow your mind run riot, and to discipline it to be the servant of reason and of virtue. Think of a guard standing at the city gates. He has to examine what comes in, admitting only what is safe and beneficial, excluding what is dangerous. Similarly, you have to become the guard of your mind. Don't let every impression rush the gates. Don't let every fear, every insult, every temptation find shelter within your mind. Look at them first. Ask, is this true? Is this helpful? Is this something to spend my peace on? If not, let it go. This exercise takes attention. Seneca likened runaway thoughts to an invading enemy. He cautioned that most individuals are unhappy not due to the world, but due to how they think about the world. Fear envisions calamities that never happen. Envy turns accidents into insults. Envy magnifies the joy of others. Unless you control these thoughts, they control you. This lesson is more necessary than ever in today's modern life. Social media reports and constant pop-ups overwhelm the mind with impressions. If you take them in raw, they mold your thinking and hence your feelings without you knowing it. A single headline can spoil your peace for a whole day. You can doubt your value after one comment online. But keep in mind, these are just impressions. You have the authority to accept or refuse them. You have the authority to decide what thoughts will reside in your head. Controlling your thoughts doesn't equal denying reality. The Stoics didn't ask us to lie about pain or loss does not exist. What they instructed is to observe things as they are clearly, not exaggerated, not distorted, and not judged, that makes things worse. When there is pain, acknowledge it, but do not superimpose the story. This should not happen to me. When there is loss, acknowledge it, but do not superimpose the thought. This means my life is over. Reality is enough. It does not need the burden of unnecessary judgments. Marcus Aurelius exercised this practice every day. He would remind himself, if you are troubled by anything outside yourself, it is not the thing that troubles you, but your opinion about it. And this you can cancel. This is an encouragement to all of us. Your mind is your kingdom. You are free when you decide what thoughts will govern you. So let this lesson take hold. Guard your mind. When fear arises, question it. When rage boils up, wait before you accept it. When envy crops up, remember that appearances deceive. Do not be the servant of every thought that comes into your mind. Be choosy, and you will find peace. And here is my invitation to you. If this lesson speaks to you, if you recognize the truth of it stirring in your mind, I want you to type in the comments the sentence, "Master the mind." By typing these words, you remind yourself that you can have control, that you are not powerless before your thoughts. It is a statement, a vow, and a habit. Remember, your thoughts construct your reality. Master them, and you master your life. Lesson 2. Pay attention only to what you can control. If there is one rule that governs the whole Stoic existence, it is this: some things are in our power, and some are not. Epictetus began his Enchiridion with these lines because he thought that forgetting this difference is the cause of human distress. To live intelligently, to live without a shackle, you have to learn to concentrate on only what is in your power and to release altogether from the rest. Think how much of your daily misery is due to neglecting this fact. You become agitated regarding what other people think of you, though their thoughts are not yours to order. You become angry about the weather, though no protest is able to quench the storm. You despair over time, though no one can hinder its progress. All that energy, all that suffering wasted on things you have no control over. And as you are busy with these wars, you forget about the one war that is rightfully yours, your own decisions, your own mind, your own actions. The Stoics believe that freedom lies in limiting your scope. You do not have to dominate the world. You only have to dominate yourself. Your judgments, your intentions, your virtues, these are all yours. No tyrant, no calamity, no misfortune can strip them from you. Epictetus, though a slave by birth, was freer of spirit than some emperors because he realized this. His body might be bound, but his will was untouchable. Marcus Aurelius exemplified this practice as emperor. He was beset by war, betrayal, and disease. Day after day, forces outside his control shaped the destiny of the empire, but in his diary he admonished himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. See this, and you will be strengthened." Pay attention to what he doesn't say. He doesn't say, "Change the world and you will find peace." He instructs, "Change your mind, and peace is yours already." This is a lesson in today's modern life. We are living in an era of perpetual distraction in which we are presented with the option to give our energy to the things beyond our grasp. The perpetual cycle of news, the rumor of strangers, the opinions of millions online. The more we pursue mastery over these, the weaker we become, because control never comes. But when you draw your focus into that which is within you, your discipline, your honesty, your effort, you reclaim your strength. This focus is not passive. It does not mean ignoring the world or becoming indifferent to others. It means engaging with the world in the right way. You cannot control how others act, but you can control whether you respond with patience or anger. You cannot control whether fortune brings success or failure, but you can control whether you meet both with dignity. You cannot dictate how long we live, but can dictate how well we live today. That is sufficient. Seneca cautioned against the waste of our lives for fear of that which we cannot control. He said, "He suffers more than necessity who suffers before it is necessary." How oft do you suffer in anticipation, dreading issues you cannot control? This is the cell of the uncontrollable mind. The Stoic response is to release, to say, "This is not mine, this is not in my control, I let it go." And when it's let go, peace starts coming back. Consider an archer. His job is to strap his bow, stabilize his hand, and take careful aim. After the arrow has been released, the result is out of his hands. The wind will shift, the target will move, the arrow will splinter. If he attaches his peace to the flight of the arrows, he will live in perpetual fear. But if he keeps his peace attached to the act of aiming well, he is free. Life is the same. Do your duty, play your role, aim well, and let go the result. This discipline is not simple. The mind will always attempt to capture what is beyond its grasp. But every time you remind yourself, every time you bring your attention back to your own decisions, you become stronger. Time after time, this becomes who you are. You cease to waste effort on the impossible, and you put everything into the possible, your own worth. So here is my challenge to you. Start today. The next time you experience frustration, rise, stop, and ask, "Is this within my control?" If the answer is no, let it go. If the answer is yes, do something with reason and virtue. This little question can change your whole life, and I want you to make this promise now. Write in the comments the words, "My power is mine." These words are a reminder that your real strength is not taking control of the world, but taking control of yourself. They are a vow to yourself, a daily practice, and a bulwark against despair. Take heed of only what you can control, and abandon all the rest. In this you will be free. In this all the rest starts to take care of itself. Lesson 1. Live with virtue first of all. At the center of Stoic philosophy is a principle so obvious and so strong that everything else comes from it. The only good and the only evil are virtue and vice. Wealth, health, pleasure, and position can come and go, but they are not good or bad in themselves. They are neutral. What counts, what determines the excellence of a life, is the way you live. With wisdom, with justice, with courage, and with temperance. That is the Stoic ideal of the highest good. Marcus Aurelius, king of the greatest empire in the world, reminded himself every day that glory and power were worthless if not exercised with virtue. He wrote, "Just that you do the right thing, the rest doesn't matter." Try to picture an emperor beset by riches, armies, and boundless temptations, simplifying life in this way. Do the right thing, that is enough. Seneca expressed this reality when he stated, "A good character once established is not easily overthrown." For him, virtue was the anchor that holds us steady through all of life's storms. Without it, we are lost, tossed about by desires, fears, and accidents. With it, we are secure, no matter what fortune brings. To live with virtue above all is to recognize that your character is the only that which rightly is yours. You might lose health, but you will not lose the option of acting with courage. You might lose wealth, but you will not lose the option of acting with justice. You might lose friends or position, but you will not lose the option of living with wisdom. All that is external may be lost, virtue cannot. In a practical sense, the Stoics recognized 4 cardinal virtues to live by: wisdom to perceive the world clearly without delusion, and to act according to reason; justice to render unto others their own, to live justly, to treat others as belonging to the same human family; courage to stand up against fear, pain, and adversity with strength without fleeing; temperance to master your desires, to live with balance, and to avoid being ruled by excess. These virtues are not abstract ideals. They are daily practices. Each decision is a test. Will you choose wisdom or ignorance, justice or selfishness, courage or cowardice, temperance or indulgence? Over time, these choices shape your character, and your character shapes your destiny. Living with virtue above all also brings freedom. If you assume that the highest good is wealth or pleasure, then you are a slave to fortune, glad when you have them, wretched when you do not. But if the highest good is virtue, then no loss can destroy you. Fortune can take away everything else, but it cannot touch your integrity. And a man who walks in integrity is invincible. In modern life, this lesson is needed now more than ever. We inhabit a world that has success, status, and stuff as idols, too often at the expense of integrity. But observe closely. How many rich folks are discontented? How many influential people are unhappy? How many celebrities are fractured? Without virtue, none of those externals guarantee peace. But with virtue, even poverty, obscurity, and illness can be tolerated with integrity. Marcus Aurelius experienced betrayal, sickness, and constant war, but he never lost his devotion to virtue. He reminded himself, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. This simple rule guided the Emperor of Rome, and it can guide you as well. So ask yourself each day, am I living with wisdom? Am I practicing justice? Am I showing courage? Am I an exercise of temperance? If you can say yes, then regardless of your circumstances, you are doing well. That is the promise of Stoicism. And here is my last invitation to you. If this lesson sticks with you, if you are willing to make virtue your guide, then write in the comments the words "virtue first." These 2 words are more than a motto. They are a statement of your greatest priority, a reminder that character is the basis of freedom, and a promise to live as the Stoics lived. Because when you rank virtue first, the rest of life starts to get into order. We have journeyed together through 10 ageless lessons of Stoic philosophy, and each one has took us further into the center of a truth that the ancients were well aware of. The world is unpredictable, uncertain, and sometimes cruel, but peace is always available to you if you can learn to command yourself. This is the insight that supported Epictetus in slavery, Seneca in political peril, and Marcus Aurelius on the throne of a fractious empire. And this is wisdom that will carry you today in a world of distractions, anxieties, and ceaseless pressures. Reflect on where we started with the invitation to prioritize yourself and watch everything else unfold. This is not selfishness, it is clarity. Because what is the alternative? To live your life attempting to control what cannot be controlled, to base your happiness on the changing winds of fate, possessions, or other people's opinions. That is the route to frustration. The Stoics taught us a different path. The path of inner strength, of reason, of virtue. The 10th lesson instructed us to accept what we can't control. The 9th taught us to master our responses. The 8th reminded us to live in accordance with nature. The 7th encouraged us to accept adversity as training. The 6th called them to let go of desire. The 5th to practice voluntary discomfort. The 4th to protect our time jealously. The 3rd to master our thoughts. The 2nd to concentrate only on what lies within our power, and the 1st to put virtue first. All together, these teachings constitute a whole philosophy of life, not abstract theories, but working tools. Tools you can apply today in your work, in your struggles. Tools that remind you that peace is not found in changing the world, but in changing yourself. That happiness is not found in chasing pleasure, but in living with virtue. That strength is not the absence of hardship, but the ability to meet hardship with dignity. And so, as we close this journey, I ask you to stop and think. Which lesson resonated with you the most? Was it the exhortation to protect your time, reminding you of the time you fritter away and the importance of living life to its fullest? Was it the encouragement to let go of desire, revealing to you the shackles that carnal desire has bound upon your soul? Was it the training of concentrating only on what you can control, liberating you from ceaseless worry? Or perhaps the last lesson, the invitation to live by virtue first, encouraging you to make character your guide? Whatever, hold on. Do not keep it as something mere and verbal. The Stoics hated philosophy as a game of concepts. They insisted on philosophy as a manner of existence. Marcus Aurelius did not compose Meditations to have a book published. He wrote it to condition his mind, to live well, to hold himself in check. Seneca did not write his letters in order to impress people, but to remind his friends and himself that time is fleeting and virtue is pressed. Epictetus did not speak to be entertaining, but to change. That same invitation is now extended to you. Ask yourself, what will you do tomorrow that you did not yesterday? Will you catch yourself when lust tugs at you? And remind yourself that you already have enough? Will you recognize when anger roils up, and instead of that let yourself be calm? Will you meet a stumbling block not in despair, but in the attitude of training? Will you defend your time as tenaciously as you defend your money? Will you prioritize virtue over everything? This is the lifetime task. No one becomes a Stoic in an instant. Even Marcus Aurelius admitted his mistakes and his daily tribulations. Perfection is not the aim, but practice. Every day is a fresh opportunity to live more wisely, more boldly, more equitably, and more temperately. And with every little step, you are freer, stronger, quieter. Think of what sort of person you'd like to be remembered. Not the titles, not the things, not the transient accomplishments, but the character. Would you like to be remembered as someone controlled by fear, anger, and greed, or as someone who lived with reason, with dignity, with virtue? The choice is yours, and it is made not in high-stakes acts, but in the everyday discipline of your thoughts and actions. And here is the last challenge I offer to you. Write in the comments the words "live with virtue." Let these words be your guide, your reminder, your pledge. Whenever you glance at them, whenever you say them, you are applying Stoicism. You are stating that, no, regardless of what luck brings, your character is always within your control. At Stoicism Notebook, this is our purpose, not to stuff your head with theory, but to condition it for life, to remind you over and over again that peace resides within, that the only real prosperity is happiness, that the only real success is integrity, and that the only real power is self-control of yourself. So, as we come to an end, take these lessons with you. Practice them not just in quiet moments, but during the heat of life when feelings are heightened and challenges arise. Keep in mind that adversity is your training ground, that desire is your chain unless you overcome it, that time is your most valuable treasure, that your thoughts create your reality, and that virtue is the greatest good. Take care of yourself, protect your mind, live by reason, act with justice, be courageous, exercise temperance, and have faith that when you do, the rest will sort itself out. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. This is the Stoic way. This is the path of strength. And this is the invitation of Stoicism Notebook to walk this path together day by day, thought by thought, choice by choice.